don't know if you're aware of this, but working in the entertainment field can be, well...
rough.
Wonderful, but really hard.
ridiculous. I mean, I love it, but everything about it is appealing.
Let's call it challenging.
It's sometimes a long time between jobs.
A long time.
And if there's no work, there's no money.
And no insurance.
Not good. And then you get a job and everything changes.
There's nothing better.
Until your show closes.
Or your TV show gets canceled.
Or the dance company folds.
Or you get injured.
It's a lot. It's a great business, except when it's not. The good news is the Actors Fund.
Oh my God, I love the Actors Fund.
Now, the first thing you have to know is that it's not just for actors.
Say it with me. It's not just for actors.
It's not just for actors.
If you work in film, television, or any of the performing arts, the Actors Fund is here for everyone in entertainment.
Everyone.
All of this is the Actors Fund.
They understand how bananas this business is.
Their programs are designed with entertainment professionals in mind.
They get it.
They are our safe place.
Our safety net. And they are completely essential to our community.
And not just for actors.
The Actors Fund.
For everyone, everyone.
Everyone.
Everyone in entertainment.
Hello, my name is James Bruno Eaglehart, and welcome to the New Works Virtual Festival, a benefit for the Actors Fund. The Actors Fund is a 501 charitable organization that supports everyone involved in the entertainment industry. So, please make a donation if you can by texting 5678-GIVE to 56512 or go to theactorsfund.org/NWVFest. We appreciate your support, and now sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the show.
Hi, my name is Harrison Zeiberg and I'm the author of We the People. This play is a fictionalized retelling of the Constitutional Convention, and I wrote it because I realized that this was one of the most important, if not the most important, events in our nation's history, and I couldn't find a creative retelling of it. Now, the first scene I wrote was an argument between two delegates about the role of slavery in the document they were creating. But as I kept writing, I realized what the true story was, and it was about the men itself, the very flawed and biased men who came together one summer to write this document into existence where they had no idea where it was going to go, and they had no idea that it was going to create the nation we live in now. And even though they made many mistakes and were flawed and biased, they still created a document with ideals that we're still trying to live up to this very day. I want to thank the New Works Virtual Festival for picking this play and for the cast for recording. This was actually the first time I'd ever heard the play read out loud, and this will be the first time you all are hearing the play read out loud as well. I want to thank my family for all their support. I want to thank my friends from Malden, Massachusetts, my hometown, and also at Wheaton College, where I'm a junior studying history and political science. Now please, if you can, donate to the Actors Fund and enjoy the show. Thank you.
We the People by Harrison Zeiberg. Setting, Philadelphia, 1787. Scene 1. There are various desks and chairs scattered around in disarray. It is obvious no one has been in this room for some time. On stage left, there is a chair with the rising sun painted on the headrest. All the other furniture in the room is nondescript and could be interchanged with each other. Hamilton enters in a rush, taking in the room eagerly. Madison follows slowly behind him, reading through his papers.
We're finally here, Jim. After everything, we're finally here.
It's just Philadelphia, Alexander. It's not that impressive.
You know what I mean, Jim. I never thought we'd get them to agree to come here. I thought by this time I'd still be yelling at everyone in New York to listen to me.
Your voice does carry, Alexander.
Jim.
Well, when we've actually done something, I'll share your enthusiasm. We've only just arrived, and we're the first ones by the looks of it. They could have at least set up the room. I'll have a word with something about that later.
You know, this is where they signed the Declaration.
I know. You keep mentioning it.
What was that?
Oh, nothing.
I'm sure. You know, you can't be this gloomy the entire time we're here.
It's my right to be however gloomy I want to be, and I plan on exercising it. When does Washington arrive?
He'll be here soon enough.
Yes, but
He gave us his word. He won't go back on it. He's as stubborn as a mule when it comes to his honor.
stubborn or not, we need the man.
He'll be here.
You know, we'll look like boys next to Washington and Franklin, and not just because of how short I am.
We are boys next to them, Jim. Washington could be our father, and Franklin is old enough to be our grandfather.
I could practically be your father, Alexander. You're basically a child. Half the time I'm surprised you've learned how to read yet.
Hey, I may be young, but
I meant no offense. No offense. You know, having Franklin here is almost as good as having Washington. I don't think Franklin could physically miss a meeting like this. He'd crawl out of the grave to be here if he'd had to.
Well, they'll both be here soon enough. It'll be good to see the general again. It'll be just like the old days.
I pray this won't be just like the old days. There was a lot of shooting in the old days. People tend to die in the old days.
And how would you know? You weren't there?
I read about it.
Well, it will still be good to see the general, even without the bloodshed to make things exciting.
Of course.
Is something wrong, Jim?
No, of course not.
You have a horrible poker face.
All right. You need to be careful.
What?
Now, don't get mad at me. You
Wait,
must
why
be
would I?
careful with how you speak to, or more importantly, of Washington.
If anyone knows how to speak to or of the general, I think it would be me.
I know. But do you want to be Alexander Hamilton, personal butler to George Washington, or do you want to be Alexander Hamilton, renowned political thinker and leading man from New York?
I can be Washington's man and my own.
A servant cannot serve two masters.
Oh, tell me if you're going to keep quoting scripture so I know when to leave.
I'll try to keep the quotes as few as possible, only originals from here on out.
Good. The general will be here soon enough, Jim.
I know, it appears he's already here.
What?
Gentlemen,
General.
stand at ease, Alexander. This isn't the army, and I'm not a general, just Mr. Washington from now on.
Of course, sir. It is good to see you again.
And you?
It is a pleasure to see you, Mr. Washington.
Yes, Mr. Madison, I suppose. I've enjoyed your many letters. They were quite convincing and persistent, to say the least.
You must forgive me, Mr. Washington, but you must understand what is at stake here.
I'm well aware, Mr. Madison, of what is at stake. I may be old, but still have some wits about me.
I see. Well, now, may I ask?
You must be tired, General. Can I take you to your lodging?
No, I just wanted to see this room again. Last time a group of us decided to meet here, I didn't get to stay long. I doubt that this time will be the same.
I should say so myself, General. If you have...
We will let you take in the room, General. We'd hate to disturb you.
What are you doing? I need to speak to him about important matters.
Not in that way.
What do you mean?
You don't know what you're doing here, Jim. Please, just listen to me when it concerns the general. I know better.
Alexander.
I know him, Jim. You have to trust me on this.
Please let this work.
Shall I put this on the desk, sir?
Billy, it's good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you too, Mr. Hamilton. I hoped you'd be here. That makes my trip from Virginia worth it.
Billy.
Where are you staying, Mr. Hamilton?
Oh, just at that hotel.
Billy, put my belongings with the Virginia delegation.
Won't you be sitting in that chair, sir?
I said, put it with the Virginia delegation.
And where would that be, sir?
Alexander?
I'll show you.
Madison takes Billy Lee to where the Virginia delegation will be sitting. Madison walks back to Hamilton once he's done this, looking at the chair with the sun in the back. Washington is lost in thought. Another delegate enters, Morris, smiling as he does so, bringing a different type of energy to the room. Morris speaks to Billy Lee, who is still placing Washington's belongings on the bed.
Is that the general?
Yes, sir.
As I live and breathe, I haven't seen that man in years, but damn me if he isn't as intimidating as ever. And looks angrier than I remember.
Hello, sir.
General Washington, it is an honor to meet you again. It's been far too long.
I am sure. And you would be?
Governor Morris, sir, of Pennsylvania.
So you must be here with Dr. Franklin.
Same delegation, sir, yes.
Well, I am sure.
May I ask you a question, General Washington? I suppose that was already a question, but not the one that I was intending. I'm sorry if I'm speaking fast. It's not every day I see someone of your stature.
I wasn't aware that I was that tall.
Oh, no, sir, that's not what
I know what you meant. Please, get to your question.
Of course. This is an issue that I pray that this convention will discuss at length, because I can't think of anything that is more important. I hope I'm not being too forward when I ask this, though. And if I am, please tell me, but where do you stand on the issue of slavery and these reforms?
Governor, it is good to see you. We have to catch up.
I see you've met Mr. Morris, sir.
Reacquainted. Apparently we've met before, but I can't remember when. He is rather blunt, isn't he?
Yes, he is. But he is a great writer and a leading man of his state. A valuable addition to our cause, I'm sure of that.
Did I ever say he would not be?
No. Well,
There's a noise from outside. Franklin hobbles in. The oldest member of the convention and the second most famous. He knows all eyes are on him as he enters, and he enjoys it. Takes his time to find his seat and sits down.
Oh, have you all been waiting for me?
Mr. Franklin, it is an honor to have you here.
Please, please, I can't take any more honors. After so many years of them, they just weigh down my already too weary bones. You can put my things down now.
I wish one day to have the same problem as you do, Mr. Franklin.
Weary bones and a failing body. If that is what you truly want, sir, I wish it to you 100 times over. Well, as I've always said, General Washington, how wrong of me not to have greeted you.
Please stay seated, Mr. Franklin.
Oh, I planned on it, George.
It is a pleasure seeing you again after so many years.
And you as well. Did you all know that the last time I saw the general here, he was just a tobacco planter in Virginia? A very bad one from everything I remember.
Yes, things have certainly changed, Mr. Franklin.
And I pray every day that they continue to. The world can grow awfully boring if it doesn't.
Two men enter, Sherman and Pinckney. Pinckney is talking to Sherman, who is visibly annoyed at this taking place.
Mr. Sherman, Mr. Pinckney, it is good to see Connecticut and South Carolina here.
I would not miss this moment, Mr. Madison. And it seems the people of Connecticut feel the same way. May we talk for a few moments, in private, that is?
Of course.
Madison and Sherman walk to the side. As Hamilton speaks to Morris, Billy Lee waits in the corner and Franklin takes in the room. Pinckney, having been left alone, seizes his opportunity and approaches Washington.
Mr. Washington, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, may I say what an honor it is to have you here.
I seem to be getting that a lot.
Excuse me, sir?
Nothing. Please continue, Mr.
Pinckney. Sir. Yes, well, all I wanted to say, George, if I may call you that, is that it is good to have another Southerner here, a true man of the Southern states. I believe after my own heart, if I don't misjudge you now, I believe we must speak.
Mr. Pinckney, unless you have anything of importance to say, I'd ask you to please leave me alone.
I am sorry.
Mr. Pinckney, what a pleasure to have you here. Won't you follow me?
What did I say wrong? I cannot imagine that.
You will learn his ways soon enough, Mr. Pinckney. Most do. Or you will learn to remain silent in his presence.
May I speak to you, Alexander? Alone?
All right.
They both wait for Mr. Pinckney to leave, who does so awkwardly. Pinckney goes over to speak to Morris. Sherman is setting up his desk. Franklin is happily watching everyone. Billy Lee is standing by Washington, who, although now stands among the delegates, can't seem to take his eyes off the presiding chair.
It seems that we're all here. The rest are filing in as we speak.
Is that all you had to say? I already knew that. Can I go back to comforting Pinckney? He got his first tongue lashing from Washington.
I'm being serious.
So am I. You can just tell by the look on the general's face. He gets in a worse mood every time someone tells him it's an honor to have him here.
I'm sure Washington could take care of himself. Sherman was already telling me how he wishes each day of the convention could go, from the very beginning to the very end, and he seems ready to make it so.
Is that all? I hope not to disappoint the cobbler, but that can't be...
Alexander, I need you behind me here.
What?
I need to know I have your full support in what I need to do. Sherman will be the least of our problems. Everyone here is like him to an extent. Everyone will want to have the final say in whatever it is that we're creating.
You know you have my support, Jim.
Good, good. I know I'll need it.
Scene 2. When they come back up, Washington is sitting in the presiding chair, with all others seated at the various desks around him.
We will call today to order. Would anyone like to speak first? Mr. Madison, you have the floor.
Thank you, General Washington. I am sure we all know why we are here, or why we were sent here at least. We were sent here to revise the Articles of Confederation. I agree that yes, they do need revision, but we need something more if this is to be of any importance or relevance. Something far more by my measure and thinking. I would say that we need the ultimate revision, and that is for something new to be created in the Article's place. Now, my suggestion is that...
May I speak, Mr. Madison?
It would be my pleasure, Mr. Sherman.
Mr. Madison, I will speak plainly and say simply that that is not what we were sent here to do.
We were sent to make whatever revisions were necessary.
Whatever revisions were necessary. Revisions, reforms. These I support. These Connecticut supports. But to write something new, that is not why we are here. That is not our mandate. No one gave us permission to throw out the government we have.
We've done it before.
I know. I happened to be there. And what followed was years of bloodshed. Is that what you want to go back to?
That's what we're heading towards right now under the current system.
The people made an agreement to something. What right do we have to change that?
The people can be wrong, as we have seen before. The Articles of Confederation do not work. The states are in debt. Our veterans are not paid. They're not even being paid, and haven't even risen up in rebellion. The states are in debt, and our veterans are not being paid and have risen up in rebellion. We have all heard of Shea in Massachusetts. How much more unrest must there be before we take action?
Well, we already have a system that allows for change. Let us work within it.
A system where one state can block the will of the other 12.
It's what we all agreed to, Mr. Morris.
I ask you, would you want the same as your New England brethren have had?
What you say is a valid criticism, Mr. Madison. I will agree with you on that, but who gave us the right to write something new? The people that sent us here didn't. Do you claim to be speaking for a higher power, Mr. Morris? Or you, Mr. Madison?
I speak only for myself, Mr. Sherman, and my state. Our Confederacy is on the verge of collapse, and I would do what I can, and the people who sent me here would, to avoid the fate that awaits us.
The Articles are designed to protect state sovereignty. We are a confederacy of states built for mutual defense. Now, each of our states have the ability to choose their own destiny. This is something that I thought you would respect.
I would, Mr. Sherman, and I do. But not when the destiny of one will lead to the destruction of the whole.
Mr. Madison, take it from someone who has been around longer than you. You are jumping to conclusions.
And you're ignoring the full picture.
May I speak?
Please, Mr. Morris.
Thank you, General. If we're all pretending to speak plainly, let me just say that this argument is a waste of our time.
I resent that, Mr. Morris. This is the most important matter.
Oh, I meant no personal affront to you or to any one of your thinking. We all here agree that the articles must be changed. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. But to change something that is so inherently broken is pointless when we can create something new.
We were not sent here to make something new, but to fix something that is broken. That is what brought me here. And yes, Mr. Morris, I agree there are serious flaws in the articles, but do not throw the whole out because of it. The people who signed the articles, which includes you, Mr. Morris, and I, laid a strong foundation.
And I can admit that we were wrong. Well-intentioned, but wrong. We didn't leave a strong foundation. We left a foundation built on sand.
I see this all comes down to...
You were not called upon, Mr. Pinckney.
I apologize, General Washington.
Connecticut cannot agree to something like this. I am sure the rest of New England feels the same way. The people that sent us here gave us their trust, and I will not betray it.
We are not asking you to betray anyone's trust, Mr. Sherman. Your revisions will be made. Why sink the ship because you do not like the color of what we paint the hull?
I am sinking the ship because it was never meant to sail.
You are just being an obstructionist who was only here.
I would like to call for a brief recess, General Washington.
Agreed.
What are you doing, Jim?
Failing gloriously, apparently. I hate having everyone's eyes on me.
You talk a lot for a man who hates attention.
Who else is going to say what needs to be said if I won't?
If you weren't serious, I would laugh. And I was told I was the one with a big ego. We don't need Connecticut to get this vote through. Every other state agrees with us, even the New England ones. That is, if New Hampshire or Rhode Island even decide to show up. Why are you trying to convince Sherman? He's wasting our time.
Because we will need him.
Jim, please, we don't need him.
We will need him. We will need all of them, Alexander. Each one of these delegates needs to be brought into the fold if this will all work. We won't have a country if any one of these states refuses to join what we are doing. That includes Connecticut, even if they're annoying. And any one of them could ruin what we've worked so long for. We need him. How is your house doing?
They won't listen to reason. I don't think that I'll ever be able to convince them.
Well, try, Alexander.
I am, Jim, but they are stubborn. They're Governor Clinton's cronies to the core. You may need to do without my vote from now.
Without the voice of New York.
You'll have New York's voice, Jim. You will. Jim, just maybe not our vote. I can't promise you any more.
Mr. Sherman, may I speak with you?
Of course.
I do not mean to sound impolite with what I'm going to ask.
Should I be worried?
No, of course not. But I must ask, when you speak, are you speaking for Connecticut or for yourself?
I understand your fear now. If that was meant to be polite, I would hate to see what you being impolite sounds like.
I meant no offense to you or your state.
I speak for my state and for myself, as I was sent here to do. Why do you ask this?
No reason.
Who do you speak for, Mr. Washington? Yourself? Virginia? Or do you claim to speak for the nation that we both work? As I remember, no one gave you that power.
I speak for myself, Mr. Sherman.
Good. I respect you, Washington. I always have. But I'm not a boy who will be pushed around. Not by anyone.
I see I'm being called. I am sure we will speak again soon, Mr. Sherman.
I am sure we will.
You will get Sherman under control, Alexander.
But sir.
Do it.
Yes, sir.
Scene 3. When the lights come back up, they're in the process of voting.
It seems the ayes have it. We have determined to write a new document. I say we reconvene tomorrow morning. Billy, gather all my belongings.
Yes, sir.
Billy Lee starts to gather Washington's belongings, and once this is done, he stands just off to the side to listen to what's going to be said. Washington does not notice him.
This is truly something. I thought we would never vote on the matter.
Yes, Mr. Franklin. Mr. Sherman was adamant, to say the least, but we voted. We've set our course, and there's no going back.
It's just that New England air that got to him. You know how they can be.
I could live another lifetime and still not understand a New Englander.
You say we've set our course, George. I just wonder what ship it is we're sailing.
Yes, well, I never was a sailor, but I think we at least have found a sound heading, but it is something we must all wonder now.
Well, we won't know until we reach our destination.
May I ask a question, Mr. Franklin?
Of course.
Why are you still here? Please, I meant no offense by it. It was not a...
None was taken. You'll have to do a lot more than that to offend me. And to answer your question, why am I here? Well, if for nothing more than when you get to be my age, you like to talk to old friends. You never know when it will be the last time you see them. If you can't tell, I don't happen to be doing well.
Do you consider me an old friend, Mr. Franklin?
I do.
And I you. Besides, Mr. Franklin, the years seem to have treated you better than most.
You are a very polite liar, George, but not a particularly good one. Maybe I've been treated better than most. I've certainly outlived many, but my old age has caught up to my body. I won't bother you with the details. They tend to be more graphic than people expect. But thankfully, it has yet to reach my mind.
Age comes for us all, or at least something does in the end.
Now, with that spirit, I'm amazed you made it through a war.
It's what let me get through a war. No men in my family have seemed to make it to old age. Something always claims us too early. It's not fair, but nothing ever said it would be. So I knew when my time would come, it would come. And there was not much I could do about it. I have lived my life knowing that.
Well, that must be a dreadful way to live.
Productive. It has been too long since we last saw each other. I feel old, Franklin, more so than I have ever before.
You're just tired. This is a lot for any man. I'm sure Hamilton is tired too, and he's one of the youngest here.
Please listen to me, Mr. Franklin. I am sorry for that. I should not have spoken to you in such a manner.
Really, I have been spoken to worse.
Not by me. I have glasses now, Mr. Franklin.
Many men have glasses.
But I didn't. I need them now. My eyesight is going. I wonder what will be next. I'm not as strong as I used to be, and I know that. That's to be expected. But it's the wondering what comes next that I can't seem to make right in my mind.
But that's not your real concern, is it?
I don't know what you mean.
The question isn't if you're older. We all are. The question is, do they know you're older? The men who call you their leader, the men who look to you. Well, if they don't know it, then they are fools. And if they do know it, they do know that the great George Washington isn't immortal. Well, they won't believe it. You're more than a man to them.
I never wanted to be.
You stopped being just a man a long time ago. Ever since you became General Washington, you are their leader. That won't change now just because you wear glasses. And you came to lead them again. If you didn't want this, you could have stayed home. I hear Virginia is quite lovely.
Have I made the right choice in coming here?
You're asking me?
Yes.
If it's the right choice has yet to be seen. We may never know if it is the right choice, but it was a choice you made, and now there's no going back.
You're right.
I tend to be. Besides, your supposed old age hasn't changed everything about you. You're still the man who wants to end up on the right side of history. No one knows where this is going. None of us can predict it. You stake your legacy on it, though.
How could I not? We fought for something in the revolution that was greater than any of us. If I didn't come here, we could lose everything. All those long years would have been for nothing. We've gained our freedom, but now we must keep it.
If you did not come here and this convention failed, then the revolution failed. If you did not come here and the convention succeeded in whatever it is we are doing here, then you are forgotten. Yet if you do come here and it fails, then your last act in the public will be a failure. Not a predicament I would like to find myself in.
Yet here I am. Are you not in the same position? Your name is as famous as mine. If this fails, then the last thing your name could be associated with is a failure as well.
I will always be famous, George. I didn't invent all of those things, write everything I did, and drag myself around the world to be forgotten, or worse, to be remembered for just one thing.
I don't seem to have that luxury.
Not yet. It seems your only real option is to win. You found yourself in that position before, if I remember correctly. Maybe it is not so different. Tell me, what is your name?
I forgot he was here. Billy, I told you to gather my things and to leave.
That is not necessary, George.
I'll be leaving.
Be quick about it.
Yes, sir.
Billy Lee exits and Franklin looks after him until turning his head back to Washington, not saying what he wants to say.
Will you let me walk you back?
Yes, Mr. Washington.
The stage dims as they leave, but we are still able to see Billy Lee. Billy Lee gathers Washington's things. He looks around the room and lays a hand on Washington's desk, shakes his head, and as he walks forward, he starts to limp. He realizes he's getting older too. Stops by Franklin's chair, pulls it out, walks to the door and stops at it, takes in a few moments where he doesn't need to do something that someone else told him to do, and smiles and exits. Scene 4. Franklin enters, sees that his chair is pulled out for him, and smiles as he sits down, his day off to a good start, and Madison enters behind.
Mr. Franklin, it is good to see you again.
I would hate to miss anything. It is somewhat of a passion of mine to not miss the events I'm expected to be at.
I feel the exact same way. I am sure the rest will come in eventually. They always seem to.
I would hope that they would, Mr. Madison, although no one seems to be as dedicated to this as you.
Thank you, I think.
You are smart enough to know if I was insulting you.
I would hope so. Mr. Franklin, may I ask you a question?
That was one. Go on, Mr. Madison.
Of course. How does this compare to the signing?
The signing
of the Declaration.
I knew what you meant. To answer the question, though, it can be difficult. I'd say it's different, Mr. Madison. Some of the men, quite a few that are here, were there as well, although that was many years ago now. At the signing, we were fighting for something that we were not sure about then. We were committing treason, in truth. Here, we do not have that sword over our heads. We are here to make something new, not to forge a new nation out of blood, but out of words. We are here to do something very different, maybe something that is better. I hope that answer does not disappoint you, Mr. Madison.
No, that doesn't disappoint me at all.
People are always going to draw comparisons when they shouldn't. But who knows what will be thought of us?
The rest of the delegates enter except for Washington. Hamilton walks up to Madison, annoyed, ready to talk about it.
Sherman will not listen.
We must talk about representation today.
Please, Mr. Pinckney.
I must agree with Pinckney on this particular issue.
It will be discussed in good time, I am sure.
And when will that be?
When we have discussed everything else I have assumed. Now, please leave me alone. I have a headache.
You're being ridiculous, Mr. Morris. We cannot push off such an important issue.
We can discuss this all later. I'm going to speak to Franklin.
Mr. Pinckney, we will discuss the matter in good time. Please, we have other things that we have already started to debate. Let us finish that first before we move on to something else.
I have yet to introduce myself, Mr. Franklin. My name is Alexander Hamilton of New York.
I would introduce myself, but it seems you've done that already. What can I do for you?
I simply wanted to say hello to a great man.
When you find one, please tell me. It'd be nice to finally meet one for myself.
Mr. Franklin, if I could be half as great as you, I would be considered a great man.
You're too kind. Now, you tell me something. When will we hear you speak? You've been silent so far in the weeks we've been here.
When my voice is needed, I will speak.
I've heard so much about you, Alexander. Washington is a stoic man if I ever knew one, but he does talk about you quite often, and if I knew nothing else of you, that would be enough.
I didn't know that, Mr. Franklin.
But let me tell you one thing, Alexander. If you wait for your voice to be heard, wait for it to be needed, your moment will pass, and you won't even know that it did. A great many men do, and when that happens, well, we all know that there's no going back. Now tell me, what is the name of the man that stands next to the general?
Sir, there isn't a man that stands next to Washington.
Him.
Oh, him. That would be Billy Lee.
You know him?
He was with Washington throughout the Revolution.
Like yourself?
Yes, but of course, not in the...
Of course. Curious, Washington is. I sometimes think he claims that he only wants to be a simple farmer, yet that's not true. Everything about him will be judged and studied, every single thing. Can't imagine how that feels.
You can't, Mr. Franklin?
Well, not from his point of view, that is. Maybe that is something that all men of fame must suffer through. Anyway, don't pay attention to my ramblings.
I will say this quickly. A man gave me papers last night detailing the notes of this meeting. What is said in this room is supposed to be secret. We all gave our word to keep what was said here secret. We all agreed to that. If you are not here to take this as serious as I am, then I do not think my presence here is needed anymore. Am I understood?
We will be more careful, General Washington.
Good. Consider debate open. Who is the first speaker?
It seems that we have finally come to the topic I know we have all been waiting to discuss, that of an executive. Now, the executive that is chosen must be the best of us. They must be the highest caliber. They must be someone that not only the public trusts, but that we as the leading men of this nation can trust as well. So I will ask a simple question. Why not choose the man to lead us from the legislature?
Mr. Madison, we fought a war to stop living under the rule of a parliament. We don't need one here.
We fought a war against tyranny, Mr. Morris, against a king who took away our very means to live and to make a living and a life for ourselves.
An executive chosen from this legislature will have nothing that keeps him loyal to the people. Nothing that will hold him accountable. Sooner rather than later, we will have a tyrant once again sitting in the executive's chair.
That is an unjust claim.
Is it?
The character of the executive will make him act in the interest of the country and of the people.
With nothing holding him accountable to those very two entities. I've seen your proposals, Jim. I agree with most of them. I can't on this one. I won't.
The man chosen to lead us will be of the utmost character. He will be the best of the legislature. And in doing so, we'll be able to command the nation we are trying to build. Should we really allow some non-entity to lead us when we have the leading men of this country in this very room?
I am sure the first one to lead us will be one of the highest character. But can you answer me for the second? Or the third? Will they always be of the highest caliber and character?
And what guarantees the mob give us?
The mob?
The people. Will they choose someone that we can always trust? Or will they be a demagogue like any other? A man who will play to the whims of the mob to garner more votes. A country made so that the bare majority can rule with the utmost power is not a country at all, but an executioner's block waiting for the voices of dissent.
I thought we were trying to make a government for the people.
The people, Mr. Morris, not the mob.
Am I advocating for the mob, Jim?
Please, gentlemen, sit down.
All I am saying, all I have ever said on this subject is there needs to be some form of accountability for the executive. That accountability will be the people. Any other decisions is just plain politics.
You two will not agree. Must you keep arguing about it? Let's move on.
Mr. Morris, I agree with you. The accountability of the executive will be to the people, to the country that the executive is bound to serve. If you have no faith in the legislature to pick an executive, I do not see why you think the people could do much better.
Because the members of the legislature are politicians, and politicians are corrupt.
And will not one persuasive man be able to tear this country apart? One man who can convince enough people that he is the man who should lead. My plan will allow us to keep the people safe.
Will you do something about this, Mr. Washington?
Come on, Jim, sit down.
Sit down, Mr. Sherman.
Safety, Mr. Morris. That is all I am talking about.
Safety from what?
The people from themselves.
It seems we will never agree.
Then I suggest you move on, gentlemen.
May I speak?
You have the floor, Alexander.
Thank you. I see the two sides of the argument, but let me say my own point of view. Now more than ever, we need a strong executive. An executive that can command the nation we are truly trying to build once again. So then the question becomes, how long can the executive serve? I know this may not be a popular idea, but it must be said. If the executive is only to serve for a few years at a time, then how is there to be any stability in our government? Isn't that what we are trying to avoid by this document that we are trying to create? I would hope that the government we create is able to stand the test of time. At least better than what we set up not a few years ago. More now than ever, we need stability. That is why I propose an executive that serves for life.
You cannot be serious, Alexander.
An executive that serves for life will be immune to political corruption.
This cannot be a serious suggestion, Alexander.
A suggestion as serious as yours and as any.
Alexander, please sit down.
This is a valid point. To take the executive away from...
Mr. Hamilton, I don't question your intelligence or character. But I think we speak for everyone when we say we would like to get on to more serious opinions.
Sit down.
I can't believe this. I've listened to you for hours now, and the moment I speak, you refuse to hear what I have to say.
When you suggest a king, Alexander, what reaction should I have?
Not a king.
Just a man who will serve for life. When the differences between a king and our executive is simply what name they have. We know we have failed.
Will you listen to me?
Please, Alexander, keep your voice down.
Stay out of this, Jim.
Was something amusing said, Mr. Franklin?
No, I can't imagine anything amusing was said. What is the why I'm laughing.
Would you care to enlighten us, Mr. Franklin?
I meant no offense, General Washington, and I pray that none was taken by any of the noble men in front of me, and you most of all. It is just amusing to see men who fought for liberty and freedom, deny that right to so many. I will say this again, as I have said before. If we are to be a nation of principles and of people, let us be truly that. Let the people have a say in their government.
Mr. Franklin, as always, we thank you for your opinion.
I do not need your thanks, Mr. Madison. I am an old man, yes, but I do not need you to act as I have lost all capacity and capability. My body is weak, but my mind is sharp, no matter what you or any of you may think of me.
Mr. Franklin, I apologize if I...
Let me speak, Jim. I have stayed silent for too long on this matter, and I would like my name to grace those notes you have so graciously been taking these past few weeks. All I have to say is that we must give the people a true voice in the government we are trying to build. The people deserve a voice in this government, a voice that has long been denied them, and that voice can be a vote. A vote that can let them a vote. Can we have a short break, George?
Benjamin, are you?
A break, please.
Of course. Of course. Everyone be back in a few minutes. Are you feeling fine, Benjamin?
Yes, let me speak to Billy Lee.
Did he do something to you? I will.
No, please, just let me speak to him.
Washington does not understand why Franklin will want to speak to Billy Lee, but motions for him to come over, and he does so.
Out of every delegate here, I believe in the people the most. Even more so than Morris for how much he talks, and I don't. I believe in their capacity to govern and to have a voice in what we make next. Yet it seems that I can barely comprehend what the future of this convention will hold, much less the nation we hope to build out of it.
Why are you telling me this, Mr. Franklin?
The people deserve a voice. They deserve to be heard. The question then becomes, what people?
I see, Mr. Franklin.
You know I am a manumus.
Do you need me to get you some, Mr. Franklin?
No, I'm fine.
And then I'll be going back to Mr. Washington now.
Billy Lee walks back to Washington. Franklin looks at the rest of the delegates, seems to be thinking of something. When he's done, he looks disappointed but resolved and looks at Madison, who sees him and nods. Madison smiles.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
Scene 5. When the lights come back up, hours have passed and all the delegates are tired. They all sit at their desks, and Billy Lee stands next to Washington's desk, practically asleep on his feet.
I see we are all tired. We will meet again in the morning. Can I speak to you, Alexander?
Of course.
You did well today, Alexander. Don't pay attention to what the others said.
I am embarrassed.
You did well. Just speak up again and soon. I need to hear your voice more often. It would be most welcome.
He exits.
What are you really doing here, Mr. Madison?
What do you mean, Mr. Franklin? I'm here for the same reason everyone else is. Same reason you are.
Are you?
Well, I had thought so until now, Mr. Franklin.
My name is Benjamin, Mr. Madison. Please refer to me as such.
My name is Jim, Mr. Frank. Benjamin.
Thank you. Now, my question stands. Why are you here?
To create something new.
By yourself?
Excuse me?
Are you here to write a nation into existence, a country, a government, by yourself? It's a task I've never seen accomplished before. It would be interesting to be a witness to it.
That's not what I'm trying to do here.
Then why are you stubborn?
I wasn't aware I was being stubborn, Mr. Franklin.
You argued with Morris for the better part of a day on a point you knew you would lose. You do know that you have lost it.
I was growing aware of the possibility that may have happened.
It's not a possibility, a fact, or at least one that will be soon enough when we meet again. Yet you argued with him still, even when the fight was lost.
I believe in what I'm arguing for.
You should. You're the most prepared person in this room. Your ideas are good, and I do see why you are so passionate about them, but you need to do something. And that is, you have to learn to let some of them go.
Benjamin, as I said, I will fight for what I believe in.
And you will write a great document that no one will read, much less ratify, Jim. Compromise. I know we all hate the word. It implies two people losing rather than just the opposite. You need these people's voices. You need them if you want this document to become a country.
I am aware of that. But how can I let them write something that I know to be wrong when there is something better out there? When I can give them something better that they may not even realize is an option.
The same way we all do. You smile, you shake their hand, and you move on to the next topic. To win the war, you don't need to win every battle.
I never was a soldier.
Neither was I. But my advice sounds good, and I've learned that if it sounds good, it makes sense to listen to, if not believe in it. You have a great political mind, Jim, maybe one of the best I've seen, and I've seen great ones around the world. I would hate to see it go to waste in the sovereign country of Virginia when it could do so much good for the United States, an idea that I've dedicated these past years to. Please think about my words before you speak next. Maybe I'm not just babbling and can give you some of my renowned wisdom that everyone keeps telling me about.
I am not opposed.
Just think on them, Mr. Madison.
I will. I can't believe this. I can't believe this. I slept here. I can see why Washington likes this chair. I want you to take that hill. We will not retreat. Charge. I never was a soldier. Never will be either. What does this even say? I wonder how much longer everyone else will be. Now, if I stand here, I'll become just as ornery as Sherman is. I'll just need to wait long enough.
He walks back to his desk and tries to make himself as presentable as possible. Looks back at the desk and starts to walk over to do it. As he does so, the rest of the delegates start to enter, and Madison walks back to his desk, not daring to think of the ambition it would take to sit in that chair.
Do it, Alexander.
Are you a coward? Besides, the general will laugh at it.
If you are lying to me.
I'm not. And you'll know right where to find me if I am.
Yes, but...
When have I lied to you?
Fine. General, how happy I am to see that you are here and in good health with us. Damn you, Hamilton, get over here.
Jim, you look terrible.
You always know just what to say, Alexander.
We are back in session. I will table the question on the executive and move on to more important matters. Are we ready to open debate again?
Yes.
Good. Would anyone like to speak? Mr. Madison, you may have the floor.
The next question we must ask ourselves is about representation. I have long believed that the legislature should be made up of two houses, and we have come to agree on this point. What must be considered next is how do we fill each house? The fairest way to do this is to base representation in both houses off of the population.
I cannot abide by this, Mr. Madison. This feels like nothing more than a power grab by states like Virginia and New York. If the small states are to have any true voice, then it must be an equal voice in the country that you are trying to construct. Not a voice that is so minimal, it hardly matters if we show up or not.
I would hardly ever call your voice minimal, Mr. Sherman.
Now, Mr. Sherman, is it not fair that the states that are more populous have a voice that will match it? Is it not fair for states like Virginia to have a voice in their government that matches the voice that they have in the nation?
They deserve a voice, yes, Mr. Madison. But is it fair for states like Virginia to make laws for the whole country when other states, no matter how much they oppose it, will have no say? Why should Connecticut enter this new union when our vote would be so inconsequential and our voice ignored?
Mr. Sherman, for each state to be on equal footing, we'd lead to gridlock, much like we have now. One state could hold up the entire government from nothing more than jealousy or greed.
We run the same risk of gridlock here, Mr. Madison. Each delegation only has one vote here. Yet this convention seems to be working. Would you not apply the structure of this convention to the government you are trying to build?
No, Mr. Sherman, I would not.
Then aren't you being hypocritical?
Maybe I am. The system works here, Mr. Sherman. It works when like-minded men have come to join together in debate. The same cannot be said for the Congress we are trying to create.
I see the legislature as the most important part of this new government.
Each part is to be equal, Mr. Sherman.
As I was saying, I see the legislature as the most important part of this new government you are trying to create. And that is why I agree with you on the executive, Mr. Madison. But I cannot stand by and watch the large states make such a blatant power grab in this new government without making my state's voice heard. You, sir, are trying to put the cart before the horse. You are trying to condemn this new Congress with words like gridlock before they have even met.
There is a difference between putting the cart before the horse and knowing the difference between a horse and a mule.
And do you think I do not know that, Mr. Madison? I have had my share of experience in revolution and government.
Yes, Mr. Sherman, but...
Mr. Madison?
Jim, are you okay?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Sherman.
I cannot stand for your plan, Mr. Madison.
Then let us speak of this later, or let it come to a vote. We can move on to different matters.
I do happen to have a question for my fellow delegates.
The chair recognizes Mr. Pinckney.
Thank you, General Washington. I will be blunt, and by doing so do you all a favor. To be specific and to the point is a skill that many men do not share, and I for one would care to see more of in this meeting.
Mr. Pinckney, you were getting to the point?
I was. I must ask a different question about representation, and that would be what is to be counted in it. Would certain types of property be included in the official count? The question is of the utmost importance to the members of my delegation.
I cannot believe what I am hearing. Do you?
The chair does not recognize Mr. Morris.
This man is trying to count his slaves into his state's representation.
The chair does not recognize Mr. Morris. Please sit down.
Is a curse upon us. Upon what principle is it that your slaves shall be computed in your representation? On what rational basis do you make this claim? This is a political power grab, and it can be said in no simpler terms.
The chair does not recognize Mr. Morris.
I apologize, General Washington, and I ask for your forgiveness and my fellow delegates.
Please continue, Mr. Pinckney.
Thank you. I understand how you feel about our peculiar institution, Mr. Morris. Yet, slavery is necessary for the states of South Carolina and Georgia. It is simply our way of life, a necessary evil that we must all endure for the economic survival of us all. We simply could not function without it. Besides, as I look around the room, I see many a man who has taken part in this practice. You, Mr. Madison, General Washington, if there's to be prohibition against slavery, against our institution, then sadly we cannot support this document.
The chair recognizes Mr. Morris.
Respectfully, Mr. Pinckney, and to the rest of you who participate in their barbarous practice, you should learn to do without it. This is a topic that has been long ignored by this convention, and we no longer can.
Do not do this. We are not here to debate slavery, Morris. Don't do this now. Not now.
I will not defend the morality of the practice because I hardly think that matters at this convention. Let's talk of practicality instead, economic practicality, the basic reason that we need a new government, if I am not mistaken. That is why I am here. That is why we are all here. The question is representation. If we cannot discuss that like men, then I no longer think my presence is quite necessary, along with the rest of my delegation.
We will not discuss it. Please sit down. We can move on to something else. What of trading rights?
The topic at hand is slavery, not representation. If we are not here to build a nation off of morals and principles, then what are we doing here, Mr. Pinckney? This new nation would be better off without you if you still want to continue enslaving your fellow man.
I have begun to ask myself the very question, Mr. Morris, of why I am still here. I will not be preached at by any man, especially one of your reputation.
I would watch yourself, Mr. Pinckney. This man will do more than that if you continue to bring damnation onto the nation that we are trying to build.
Keep your voices down, gentlemen.
How dare you speak to me in such a way? You will not speak to me in such a way. I will not allow it.
Morris, please calm down.
If we cannot speak in a civilized manner, I do not see why I must stay. This is insulting to everyone here.
Please, Mr. Sherman, don't leave now. Not after everything we've done.
This is madness, Jim. Grown men acting like damn children.
Alexander, listen to me.
You will be seated now.
Challenging my honor, sir.
You have none.
I said sit down and be quiet.
Please, everyone listen to General Washington.
I have something to say.
Please, Mr. Franklin, let your voice be heard.
I believe that we must say a prayer at the start of every day of debate. Let us ask for guidance from a force that is greater than ourselves, so that he may lead us through this time and these disagreements. Remind us of what we all have in common, what we are all trying to do here and build.
Valid suggestion, Mr. Franklin.
Agreed.
Let us take a break. We will reconvene on the half hour when our tempers have cooled. Billy, please collect my things for me.
Please, Pinckney, listen to me.
I won't hear it, Mr. Madison.
Please, let's speak man to man, Southerner to Southerner.
Southerner to Southerner, please, Mr. Madison. I've seen who you speak to, who your allies are. Tell New York where I stand on this issue, in Pennsylvania as well. You know where the true South stands and where we will always stand on this issue. Good day to you, sir.
Mr. Pinckney, please. You have to listen to me, Morris.
I don't have to do anything, Jim. If I could be done with you Southerners for the rest of my life, that wouldn't be long enough.
Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman, please speak to Morris and Pinckney.
And why should I help? After the display I just saw, not even during the revolution did we speak to each other in that way.
If anyone can make a compromise, it will be you. If anyone can make them see through it, it'd be you. We all respect you.
Is that so?
Please.
Even so, why should I do this?
Because even though we have disagreed often, we are both trying to fix something that is broken, that we both care enough about to dedicate our lives to, that we would stake everything on. Please, they won't listen to me. They know where I stand, but if you do it, you can create something that suits your interests just as much as everyone else's. That will not happen if you do not help me now. A document is going to be written, Mr. Sherman. Wouldn't you want your handwriting on it?
I will want your support on whatever I can get them to agree to.
You'll have it.
Your word?
Yes. You have my word.
I will see what I can do, Mr. Madison. But I will not promise anything.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Please let this work. Franklin, you better have been telling me the truth.
He exits. All that is left is Billy Lee, who stands by Washington's desk.
How long has it been? How many years? I was at Valley Forge in Yorktown. I was always by his side. I am as much of a veteran of that war as anyone else is, but I'll never be looked at the same way. I'll never be seen as the hero, not like Washington is. I do have my own thoughts. I have thoughts and ideas. They are mine. They belong to me and no one else. They're all I really have that does not belong to someone else. I don't even belong to myself. But what I feel and how I feel is mine and will always be mine. There is nothing that you can do that will take that away from me. You can take everything, and you have taken everything else, but not that. That belongs to me. I serve Washington well. But no matter how hard I try, no matter how much I do for him, he will always see me as less than human, not as wholly a man. There was no way that he could see me. He owns me. I am his property and nothing more. I've served a man, served him faithfully for years, a man who will forever see me as less than human, as less than a man. Anger cannot begin to describe how I feel. All my life, I have been serving others. I have thoughts. I have ideas. They have value, and I have value. And that value is more than whatever George Washington has paid for me. They're just scared. Scared to deal with something that is real. Representation in government, how long a judge can serve, how long to impeach someone. None of that matters until they deal with the real problems, the issues. They won't touch slavery because they're scared. They're just scared little men, too scared to make any real change that would upset the powers that they already hold. Too scared to do anything that will take money out of their own pockets. They all had their hands in it. They're all just too scared to do what is right because doing what's right is hard for men like them to do. And it'll always be. It will never change. Not with men like them. It will never change with men like this. Men who can't see the hypocrisy standing right in front of them, who refuse to see the change.
Hamilton enters and he stands up quick.
The general's looking for you, Billy.
I'll be right along, sir. I used to think men like Hamilton were my friend. How can a friend that won't stand up for me? How can I have a friend that won't stand up for me? Have a friend who won't fight for me? Who won't say that I have reason to exist and that I have meaning, and even that then those most men refuse to believe or even see it. They refuse to see it. They refuse to see me. And they always will.
Damn it.
Hello, Alexander. I'm hoping I'm not interrupting anything.
I didn't hear you walk in. Did you hear?
I'm surprised I didn't hear that earlier from you.
I haven't felt like speaking much lately.
And that's a first.
I would have embarrassed all of us if I had said anything. More so than we were already embarrassing ourselves today. We seem to keep doing that more often than not lately.
Alexander.
Jim, I don't have the patience to listen to one of your speeches right now, please.
I'm afraid you'll have to listen to one more, Alexander.
Jim, please.
All we are doing here is being practical.
You sound like Pinckney.
It's not the worst thing to be. We're trying to rebuild a nation. We knew we would not get everything that we wanted.
Damn your practicality. Damn it and damn you. What do you want from me, Jim? Do you want me to yell and scream at you? Do you want me to say what I really think? The issue was slavery, Jim. Morris was right. The issue was slavery. The issue was slavery, but we dance around the topic as if we're scared of the very word.
We dance because we are scared of it, Alexander. I am scared of discussing it. We're all scared of it. Petrified, truthfully. Think with reason. Think practically for just one moment. What issue could tear this convention apart? Slavery. The executive. Please, with Washington in chair, we'll find agreement. With representation, we will find agreement. Slavery. Never. There is no agreement that can be made that will bring men like Morris and Pinckney together, and 1,000 things that will tear them apart. We will never find agreement. So let us simply not talk about it.
Can you have some goddamn emotions for once, Jim? Thousands of men, women, and children held in bondage. You talk about them as if they are abstracts, not people.
We can't afford them to be anything more than abstracts. I know you don't agree with me, but do not forget why we are here. And remember that your hands aren't as clean as you are pretending that they are.
We are the greatest thinkers that can be offered. At least that's what I keep being told. The leading men from every state are supposedly here. If we won't even debate a topic, what does that say about us? You told me that Jefferson called us a meeting of demigods in one of your letters. Then let us actually have a debate on an issue.
Demigods, Alexander, not gods. None of us are omnipotent or hold great powers. At least none more so than any man can hold. We are just men trying to build something greater than ourselves. And for that to happen, we have to compromise.
It's not much of a compromise for men like you.
No, it isn't.
How can what we are building be greater than ourselves when it is built on faulty principles?
Because men are built on faulty principles.
We fought for principles of freedom. It didn't used to be a principle then. It was real. Men bled and died for something that was real. Something that was just right out of touch, but we could feel that it was there. There is nothing that goes against freedom more than that of human bondage. My sins will outlive me. I know that. But let's try to do something right before we are written into history.
That is just your opinion.
Please, Jim.
Who knows what history will think of us? Men like Pinckney and myself could end up on the right side of what is written about us here, if anything ever is. South Carolina and Georgia think differently than you do. Virginia does as well. We are not here to address moral wrongs, but to build a country. Let the men that come after us fix what is wrong with what we did. That's why we allow amendments.
Then we will have a country built on hypocrisy.
There have been worse things. We all have to swallow our pride, Alexander. Almost all of my recommendations have been cast aside for inferior things, but we cannot forget what we are fighting for.
You can hardly think that your plans are more important than
There is nothing more important than what we are trying to create. We cannot forget what we are fighting for.
Southerners.
Washington is a Southerner.
This isn't about Washington.
If you haven't noticed, he has a slave standing next to him every time we meet to debate. A slave that you know well, yet you didn't speak. You didn't say what you were saying to me now. Now, why is that?
Do not bring Washington into this. This fight is not about him. Not everything is about him.
Is that so? Of course, this is about him. In more ways than one, this is about Washington and everything that he stands for and represents. If you care this much, Alexander, why didn't you speak when you had the chance?
You know why I didn't speak.
Give me a clear answer, Alexander.
I didn't speak because I don't need to explain myself to you.
Then who will you explain yourself to? You and men like Washington are so concerned with how history will see you that you cannot forget. Then who will you explain yourself to? You and men like Washington are so concerned with how history will see you that you can forget what we are doing here and now. This is what is important.
My vote hardly matters in this convention anyway. The rest of my delegation left. I can't even vote. Without a voice, Jim, I have nothing. My voice means nothing here.
Nothing has ever barred you from speaking. I can check the rules to see if there is anything that says so, but I doubt it, seeing as you helped write them.
When I spoke, I was laughed at.
You suggested a monarchy.
No, I did not. It's an executive for...
In that moment, you look more like a boy than you have ever before.
What did you say to me?
In that moment, you were no more than Washington's man. For once, you need to be your own.
That's something coming from you.
You practically said we should crown him King George I of the United States. You were laughed at, yes, Alexander, because you weren't speaking for yourself. You were speaking for what you thought Washington wanted to hear. You were speaking for him. This is about Washington in more ways than you can possibly imagine. You have the same voice as anyone else. If this is what you care about, then use it now. I won't stop you. I can't. You must know that in using your voice, you will tear this convention apart in a way that it can never be fixed.
You seem to be doing that all by yourself.
The South will never agree to a constitution if there is anything that prohibits slavery. And you know this. It goes against our entire...
Economic interests, yes, I heard you.
It's not something to brush aside, Alexander.
This is a moral wrong.
To your morals, Alexander. We aren't here to write Alexander Hamilton's morals into a document. We're here to create a country that both you and I fought so long to create.
I can fight this.
Have you ever considered that not everyone thinks the same way that you do? That you can't convince everyone? You haven't bothered to ask anyone else what they think?
Because they are wrong on this.
Maybe.
It's not. It's not a...
This isn't about me or you.
Get off of your high horse, Jim. I have not lost sight of what we are trying to build here, but we cannot separate the two issues. We cannot build a nation with a flaw like this so inherent in the making.
We are trying to make something that will live past us. We already had one chance at it, and we failed. We do not get another. I want a nation, Alexander. And what we have now will fall apart in a few years' time. I want a republic the likes of which this world has never seen before. There comes a time when the soldier needs to put down his musket and the statesman take up his pen.
We should have done better. I could have said something more.
Maybe, and maybe this will all fail. It all still could. We have to try. When we try to ratify whatever this thing is that we're creating, I know that you can deliver New York, and I can wrestle Virginia under control. But I need you. I need your support. This fight cannot be won without you.
What will be thought of us? What will be thought of me, of all of us?
Alexander!
Damn it. You have my support, Jim.
We will be in session soon, Alexander.
I'll take my seat, and I'll stay quiet.
Thank you. Truly. Thank you.
Everyone take your seats. We are back in session. Would anyone like to speak?
I would like to.
On what issue, Mr. Sherman?
On the issue of the Republic, Mr. Washington.
Very well.
Scene 6. The stage lights come up and everyone's seated except for Billy Lee, who stands next to Washington. Weeks have passed since we last saw the convention meet. All the delegates want to go home. They've been in Philadelphia all through the hot summer, having to work in secret, and no one wants to discuss anything of importance. They're ready to vote on the final document, and tensions are high.
I am sure we all know why we are here today. Before we are to vote whether or not to pass the final document, I will ask, is there anything that we should discuss before we vote? Let all those that would speak, let their voices be heard now.
I would like to speak, General Washington.
The floor is yours, Mr. Morris.
I know what's in this document. I know we were compromised on slavery, and it was a compromise which we came to through the help of Mr. Sherman. I am speaking now to make one last plea to the goodness inside everyone here, because I believe that does exist. One last plea to my fellow delegates about something that we must change.
We discussed this before, Mr. Morris. Please, let us be done with it. We've been here for months already. Let us go home and get on with our lives.
Please, Mr. Sherman, how can we live with this compromise?
Because it is what we must live with.
There will be no crosstalk, Mr. Sherman.
3/5 of a person. That is what we decided upon. We both know that this is something that we cannot stand for. It is a moral outrage to the highest degree. I am asking you, begging you to do what is right.
And we also secured a prohibition against the slave trade after 1807. That is not nothing.
That is not enough.
There will be no crosstalk, Mr. Sherman.
That is something we can be proud of, Mr. Morris. We worked this through.
Mr. Sherman.
I apologize, General Washington.
Please continue, Mr. Morris.
We can do better. Alexander, help me with this. Alexander, speak up, damn it.
May I speak?
You have the floor, Mr. Pinckney.
Mr. Morris, I am sorry that we have to discuss this matter again after so long a time, thinking we had moved past it. From what I had gathered, we had settled this issue to both of our satisfaction.
Grudged acceptance, not satisfaction, Mr. Pinckney. We can discuss it once again because it must be discussed.
We came to an agreement nevertheless.
An agreement.
An agreement the South can sign on to. And in so doing, sign on to that document. After all these weeks, you would throw that away because you didn't get what you wanted? After everything we compromised on, after all this time, you would do this now?
Slavery is.
We know where you stand on this issue. But let me ask you, Do you really think you can make a country without the South? Without Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia? How much money would each man here stand to lose if we do what you want us to do? I mean, every man from New Hampshire to Georgia has something to lose with what you propose. Think about that before you speak again on this matter.
This isn't about money. This is about humanity.
I hardly see the difference.
Hamilton, please help me. I need you. Am I alone in this? Where are the voices that I know agree with me?
Silent, Mr. Morris. And it looks like they will remain so.
Then I am alone. My fight will not.
Please, Mr. Morris. After everything we've written, everything we've accomplished, do you want to throw it away now, when we are so close to the finish?
I will not sit by while we allow this to happen. We will be cursing the nation we want to build for generations to come. Our sins will fall onto our children and our children's children. We can stop that here. If we could all just put what is right before what is better for some of our pockets, we could do something that truly needs to be done. How can we not?
Please, Mr. Morris, sit down.
I will not hear any more of this. And what do you have to say on this, General Washington?
It is highly improper, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Morris, please.
Spoken in this convention before, why not now? Why not on this issue? Let your name grace the record on it.
I will not be questioned by you, Mr. Morris.
Then who will you be questioned by? If not by me, then who? I want an answer, Mr. Washington.
Please, Mr. Morris, you are embarrassing yourself and all of us.
You will not speak to me in such a way.
Embarrassment. You care if we embarrass ourselves here? These meetings are secret. Who could we embarrass ourselves in front of? We should be ashamed of ourselves. We should be ashamed of what stops us from doing what is right.
Please, Mr. Morris, sit down. It's too late to change anything.
What do you say, Mr. Washington? Speak.
Mr. Morris.
It's not too late. Please, someone help me. Please, Hamilton. I'm alone.
Please, Mr. Morris.
I'm alone.
Please.
As I am sure that you are aware, you know where I stand on slavery. I've never hidden the fact that I find it abhorrent, and it's a mark on us men and on the nation we are trying so hard to form. I know what I want. We'll not find it into that document up on the general's desk. I also know that because I'm the one who wrote it. Although slavery is something that I will never agree with. I know what I must do if we are to build something here that will last beyond each one of us. Each one of us. The document is not perfect in my eyes, and it never will be. Maybe we aren't here to make something perfect. Maybe we are here just to make something that is good enough for us. And we can leave it to later generations to fix it. I hope they can see our faults. I hope when they see our faults, they know to change them and to make something better with it. I hope they can still think well of us when they see those faults, although I doubt that they will be able to. I give the document my endorsement. And may God save us all for what we do.
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Speak to me, Madison.
Morris.
Sit down, Madison.
Is there anything else before we move on?
I do have something to say, Mr. Washington.
Please, Mr. Sherman.
I have not agreed with most of what has been decided upon here.
Mr. Sherman.
I am not done speaking, Mr. Hamilton. Many of the things that have been written, I do not agree with. It is a flawed document. Even though we have tried our best, I am sure to make it as perfect as possible. This document goes beyond our mandate. It goes past everything that we should have done, and it sets us down a path that there is no going back, at least not the one that I can see clearly. It's a path that we cannot go back on. And I know that. I know what must be done and how it must happen. And I promise to give my name to the cause as much help as it will do. But my voice must be heard before that can be done. Right now, we have a document that does not guarantee the rights of the people that we wish to make a government over.
Mr. Sherman, this is a moot point.
I hardly see it that way.
If we start to list the rights that people are entitled to, then the government will assume that those are the only rights that they have, the only rights that they have to meet. We would be limiting the very thing that you wish to do.
Mr. Madison, without a list of what rights the people have, then it will be assumed that they have none. That does not come from the government. No rights that are guaranteed no matter what the government says. That is not a path that we can go down, even though the rest of you seem content with doing so. The rights of our citizens must be guaranteed above and before anything else. They must be made so that they cannot be taken away by the mob or by a demagogue, as you have pointed out.
You once accused me of jumping to conclusions, Mr. Sherman. Now I would say that you are doing the same.
I do not think so, Mr. Madison. We owe the people clarity in a document that is not very clear.
As the man who wrote the document, it is only unclear because of the compromises made. That document has over 50 authors to it. I ask you to try writing something clear with that many voices.
Then why not clarify it?
Because, Mr. Sherman, if my issues were not important enough, what makes you think that yours are?
Because mine can be accomplished.
Please, please, we're so close, Mr. Sherman, Mr. Morris. We're so close to finishing this. We can't go back now.
And I will sign the document with everyone else, Mr. Madison. But my voice will be heard.
It has been heard, Mr. Sherman.
Heard, but not listened to.
Please, Mr. Sherman, be reasonable.
You will not speak to me in such a way.
Will you listen?
I suggest we take a break. We will reconvene in a half an hour.
I've never seen you do that, Jim. When I said you should have emotions, I didn't mean now.
I'm not proud of it. Sherman is being stubborn, and I'd spoken to Morris about this. I thought we had...
It's okay, Jim, it's okay.
They could tear this apart.
Jim, Sherman will sign it. Morris will sign it. It'll be voted on and passed. You have to be patient.
We've been here for months. I've been patient enough.
Jim.
I wish I could be as confident as you in this.
So do I. It would make what needs to happen next easier.
What do you mean?
You need to speak to Morris and Sherman.
I doubt they want to listen to me right now.
No, they don't. I can almost guarantee it that you're the last person they want to speak to right now. That's why it has to be you.
When did you start to think like this, Alexander?
When I remembered what we are trying to do here. A friend told me something about that.
So it has to be me.
Who else?
Madison looks off stage to where Morris and Sherman had exited, and without saying another word, he goes to his desk, starts to pick up his papers, drops them back on his desk, not needing his notes, not wanting to record what is going to be said next. He exits. Hamilton looks after Madison, proud of himself, and Franklin goes to speak to him.
Hello, Mr. Hamilton.
Mr. Franklin, you seem to always say what is needed when it is needed. I one day hope to have such a skill.
I will put you to practice before you know it.
Mr. Franklin?
I see you've been talking to Jim, giving him ideas, I see. To think that a man like Mr. Madison could somehow have the space for more ideas in his head is astounding.
I was just giving him some advice.
I see you were silent on the issues presented. I was told that you were the one that got this whole convention to happen, and still you're silent.
I proposed it, but it wasn't all my work. I was never sure it was going to happen. And when it started, I never thought it would be like this.
I see.
Can I help you with anything, Mr. Franklin?
I think we should go back to the topic of advice for just a moment, because I think I should give some myself. You have to be your own man, Mr. Hamilton.
I don't know what you're saying.
Mr. Morris and Mr. Sherman were not the only people who were questioned here today, yet they are the only ones to be spoken to.
Franklin goes back to talking to Mr. Pinckney. As they do that, Sherman walks quickly back into the room.
Mr. Sherman, please.
General Washington, may I speak with you?
Of course, Alexander. It seems that we may just trip at the end of the race. After all, I did not think it would come to this.
That is what I came to speak to you about.
Is that so?
Yes, General. Sir, I know what you are scared of.
This is fragile territory you were walking over, Alexander.
Please, sir.
Weigh your next words carefully.
I have, sir. Please, I know you're scared of your legacy. We all are.
Alexander.
But if there is anyone in this room who can be confident on how people will see them, it is you. You are a hero to everyone in this room. Please, sir, if Morris questions you again, you have to give an answer.
Do I now? I did not know you were in a position to tell me what to do, Alexander. I've had to endure enough insults at this convention. I did not think I would have to endure them from you as well.
Sir, please, listen to me. We are so close to finishing what we started so long ago. We can't let it slip away. We can't let it all fall apart now. I know how much you care about this, as much as I do, as much as Madison. This here is everything we fought for in the revolution. It can't go to waste now.
You're asking too much, Madison.
Be reasonable, Morris.
It seems that no matter what happens now, they'll still be at odds.
Madison is working on Sherman and Morrison. He will get them to agree.
And you are supposed to be working on me?
I am asking you for help in something that we both care about.
I thought I ordered you to get Mr. Sherman under control.
Sir?
I ordered you.
Sir, remember what you said to me at the beginning of this convention.
And what was that?
We're not in the army anymore.
You're right. You're right, Mr. Hamilton. You are right. Maybe I should have realized that before instead of just saying it. I will be more cordial the next time I'm questioned, if I'm questioned.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hamilton. That's a man's name, not a boy's.
Yes, sir.
Hamilton turns away from Washington, unsure what to say to him. He walks back to his desk where Franklin walks to him and leans in to whisper something. As he does so, Hamilton just seems to look more confused than he was before. As he sits down, Franklin walks over to Washington.
Billy, please tell Mr. Madison, Mr. Sherman, and Mr. Morris that we will be reconvening soon.
Yes, sir.
He exits, and so does the limp he had before he was noticeable. Stops at Morris's desk, looks disappointed, and then he proceeds to exit. As this happens, Franklin moves over to Washington. Hamilton starts to write something down, and Pinckney moves over to where Washington's desk is, deep in thought.
I see you put Hamilton deep in thought.
I can't say why.
It's really almost over, isn't it?
I hope so.
It'll be over soon enough. Tell me, do you still fear for your legacy, George?
Would it be foolish to say yes, Mr. Franklin?
Foolish, maybe. Human, yes. You know what they'll ask of you, George, don't you?
What do you mean, Benjamin?
They'll ask you to lead them. If this succeeds, that is, they'll want you to lead them again like you did in the Revolution. That is the true battle.
And to think I thought you were done fighting.
I would say that the hardest battle is yet to come, George. Maybe not the hardest battle you've ever fought, but it very well could be. It will be a battle that has never been fought before, not by men like you or me or any in this room.
Is it foolish to say that if they call on me, I will answer, and that I'd be just as happy to stay at home at Mount Vernon? Or maybe I can try again to make it as a farmer. It hasn't worked so far, but who knows?
Foolish, no. Human, yes.
Maybe I should stop worrying about my legacy, at least for what is left of this convention of ours.
George, this convention is over. We squabble because we want to go home, and we are almost there. Something real has come out of these long months, something that if we are lucky will outlast all of us. We can all see the end, so we want to get the last word in, but it will be over soon enough.
You may just be right.
I hope so. I don't know what else we can talk about.
So you say that what comes next will be the hardest part, Benjamin?
Most definitely.
I hope I have the strength to see it through.
Billy Lee enters, who is followed closely by Madison, Morris, and Sherman. Follow them for a few steps behind. Hamilton sees Madison, who nods. Morris and Sherman take their seats again, and Billy Lee stands next to Washington. Pinckney walks from Franklin's desk to his own.
I see that I should be back at my desk.
Are there any more points that are to be made? Good. I will commence with the reading, and then we shall move on to voting. We, the people of the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Providence Plantations.
Excuse me, General Washington. There's a newer draft.
I see. Here it is. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Article 1.
Scene 7. When the lights come back up, the Constitution has been read.
Now we are ready to vote, Mr. Franklin.
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Madison.
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Pinckney.
Aye.
Mr. Sherman.
Aye.
And I for General Washington. We have our Constitution.
They're all silent. None of them seem to believe that it is finally done or that it can truly be over after so long. Slowly, Hamilton gets up and puts a hand on Madison's shoulder. Morris stands and goes to shake Sherman's hand, who's surprised by this but accepts. Pinckney goes to shake Morris's hand, who's more surprised than Sherman was, but still take Pinckney's hand. Billy Lee looks on, disappointed, but knowing that he has to hide it because there is nothing he could do in that moment. Franklin stands, walks over to Washington's desk, and seems to be staring at the presiding chair.
Something wrong, Mr. Franklin?
No, something I have been wondering for some time.
What is it, Benjamin?
I have often looked at that behind the president without being able to tell whether it was rising or setting. But now I know that it is a rising sun.
Cut to black. End of play.
I love the piece. I mean, I wanted for it to actually continue. We've all studied this, and it's just a reminder of how difficult it was to write the Constitution with 57 voices, like he says. So I thought it was great.
We always think of the founding fathers, although Hamilton has sort of made it modern, but it's still kind of cool to think back, what it was really like, and I thought also with the advent of the racial justice movement that's been going on, to have another perspective on slavery and how that was handled in the writing of the Constitution, I thought that was timely as well.
It's a wonderful organization that's very personable, and they have people that are there who, especially for actors, they know how to find all the different ways for the system. It's just an invaluable resource.
The Actors Fund has been an organization that has taken care of people in our industry for generations, really, and a lot of these actors and creative people are moving on to other industries because they don't have a means to support themselves, and it's sad. And the Actors Fund could be that last thread. It could be the last thing that keeps them sticking to their dreams and their passions. And so, please donate what you can, because it is very much needed, more so than it ever has been in the past.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to donate to the Actors Fund. The information is below. And stay tuned tomorrow, same time, same place, here at the New Works Virtual Festival. Have a great night.